Good day and welcome to this week's episode of Newsmakers. Newsmakers is a program presented in cooperation with JATV Media Services by your Rock County Civics Academy. The goal of Newsmakers is to introduce you, the audience, to people who behind the scenes make a huge difference in the quality of life we enjoy here in Rock County. So you'll meet all sorts of different folks that are in positions that have a real impact on, well, just exactly how we enjoy being here in this great community we call home. I'd like to welcome into the studio City Council President Aaron Burdick. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Rich.
It's always fun to have you on board and to get you quartered. The one thing I will say is you stay incredibly busy with your real world job and your other volunteer activities, and just to get you in here is kind of a coup.
Yeah, I'm not an easy guy to wrangle in, so.
Well, and there's some advantages to that. I've dealt with those folks that they're tough to wrangle, but when you get here, I've always found that it's informative and it's helpful. Let's go back. How did Aaron Burdick get to this position where, you know, something happened and a light bulb went off and you said, I think I'm going to run for city council? When was that and how did that happen?
Well, you're asking me the hard questions, but I want to say I think I ran in 22. And why I decided to run, it was no like epiphany or anything of why I wanted to get into, politics or anything. But my job, I'm in law enforcement and administrator. And, I thought at one point, maybe I would consider possibly being an elected official at some point in my career. And there were a lot of things hitting the news cycle in Janesville. And you started seeing changes, especially downtown. And, you start asking yourself, well, how did that come about? Or, what else is going on? And you saw this positive momentum. And then, I just thought to myself is like, well, I mean, I've grown up here. I plan on living here my whole life. And I've always had the opportunity to kind of control my own destiny, per se. And it was like, I thought to myself, having the ability to understand why things are happening and having the ability to possibly help shape those things for the city, for me, for my kids and potentially grandchildren. That's why, I'm like, what, let's give it a go. And I didn't, to be honest with you, it wasn't something that I had planned out for a long period of time. It was more of it just kind of hit me all at once, and it was like, what, it's coming up, and I got a week to make a decision, and I talked to a couple of people, and it's like, go ahead, go for it. And so that's how it kind of happened.
Okay. Well, I want to give the family history a little bit of credit, though, too, because as you mentioned, you're in law enforcement. You've been in public service for a lot of years. 28
years.
And your family is a history in public service, and I've had the good fortune of knowing your dad, and by golly, he gave a pretty darn good example of what public service is all about. I'm certain, I'm on target that he had a little influence of you getting into law enforcement and you taking the path that you've taken.
Yes, I mean, I'm second generation law enforcement, and he was also an administrator in law enforcement. He was also, I think he served 2 terms on the county board as a county board supervisor. So I guess, maybe not intentionally, but I guess maybe, he had that influence on me as far as where I'm at now, and kind of having the same traits, same qualities, same desires.
What's the toughest part of the job?
What job?
The job of being an elected official in the city of Janesville. What's the toughest part of that job?
The toughest part that, and I'll kind of lean back on my professional experience, is that I'm a subject matter expert, always have been. Whatever I've supervised, I've been very good at, and now I'm supervising it, so I know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. I'm usually one of the most, I guess, qualified people in the room whenever I'm in there. And with politics, or with this, it's that your scope is so large, right? And you're being inundated with many different aspects of the city, and people would be very surprised on all the inner workings of the city and how that happens. And you get questioned, or people want to put you on the spot and ask you questions. And I think there's an expectation that you are a subject matter expert, and you're not. All you can really be is ask questions and try to get as much of the information as you can, but you're always taking a leap of faith that what certain people are telling you is the truth, right? Because you're not really experiencing it yourself. You're kind of a conduit for information, and you're just, okay, and then you make your decisions based on that.
To a degree, it's a lot like being a detective in the sheriff's department. You're brought to the scene of a situation, and you've got to discern the facts before you can make the judgment of where you go and take the next turn. Is that a fair analogy?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, crossover attributes that, you have to be able to listen. You have to be observant. I mean, I don't think anybody's ever accused me of talking too much, right?
No.
And like my old man always said, he goes, eyes and ears and no mouth, right? If you're not listening and paying attention, you're not learning. Right?
Exactly.
If you're too busy talking, you're not picking up what's actually going on. And, so there is a lot to it.
Well, and I can remember a conversation shortly, about a year into your first term, where you and I were sitting down, and I said, Aaron, you got to say something once in a while. You got to let them know that you're there. And I know that goes against that natural tendency to be all ears and all eyes. But you've come to be respected at that stage where when you say something, people listen.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't start out intentionally, because you're brand new, and a lot of this stuff is new to you. I mean, I come from the public sector and have a lot of experiences with budgets and personnel issues and things like that. But, just the parliamentary procedures and sitting there and hearing all this different terminology that you're not quite used to, you find yourself, and I've always been one that's been very cautious. If you're going to speak, you better know what you're talking about, right? Because somebody's going to ask a follow-up question, and you're going to look awfully silly if they catch you that you're just using buzzwords and things like that and not really understanding the meaning behind them. So early on, I am learning. I'm sitting there listening. I'm, listening to Mr. Markline and Paul Benson and Marshak and Mr. Williams, and seeing, how they're answering questions and kind of how they defend certain things. And yes, I mean, so when you're sitting there watching all that stuff, you're hesitant to speak because like I said, if you're going to talk about something, you better be able to speak intelligently about it. Otherwise, don't say anything, right? And I think that's kind of how it started. But then it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to just say things to say things. If that point's already been made, I'm not going to just try to get my airtime or, this isn't state or federal politics where, I'm trying to generate party support and money and things like that. So to me, it was like, I'm only going to add to this. I'm only going to add to it. Or as I later found out is that, well, even though you might be repeating some of the same points, people want to know what your reasoning is, And I think having a couple of conversations with you over time, and I know you've brought that up to me more than once. And so then, as you get comfortable, then that stuff starts resonating with you, and it's like, okay, I do have a certain responsibility to let people know how I feel about it, not just to vote, right? It's on record how I voted and so on and so forth, but, maybe a little bit behind it of why or how I got there.
You are in your second term.
Yes.
And I know you took a lot of time to make that decision to run for a second term.
Correct.
And there were a lot of motivators at the time that probably said, I've had my experience and I can go on and get my life back. Was there anything in particular that turned the corner for you, that said, Aaron, I'm going to run again?
And as you know, because I talked to you and others, and there was a period of time where I probably wasn't going to run, and it's not because I had any bad experience. Is that I realized I wouldn't call it a burden, but there's
a lot of time involved in doing this job.
It was, and also, I'm representing the city, and I also represent another municipality in my professional life, and it's hard you got to make sure that they're not crossing over, right? And that was difficult, and my kids were getting to the point where they were going to be leaving the house, and it's like, maybe I need to take some time off and for myself, because I am busy outside of work as well.
Exactly.
I have a business, and I also was coaching and doing different things here and there, and so I'm pretty busy. But what got me to change my mind, because my mind was pretty much made up that I wasn't going to, but I was caught by a couple of people, and they had asked me, and I told them, I said, you know what? I said, I don't think I can do this anymore, and I'm not going to run. And then they talked to me and said, hey, they explained some reasons why I should run again. They talked about what I brought to the council, or how they felt that the things that I brought to the council, and so then I started thinking, well, maybe I'm needed more on the council than I think, and maybe I bring more than I think to the council, and so therefore I'm like, you know what? If people believe in me to that point where they're trying to change my mind to run, so I decided to do it, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a learning experience, and you go through not only learning the intricacies of listening a lot and studying a lot. It takes a lot of hours to be an informed council member and to deal with the issues effectively. You're also in an environment where, in this age today, there's a higher level of citizen action, citizen activity that you have to pay attention to. And it seems to be a little bit more organized now than it used to be, but how does that play into your decision-making process?
Yeah, I mean, recently, I think there's, especially in Janesville, there's been some projects that have come up and that have brought with it extra scrutiny and, some movement from groups that, are fighting for certain aspects, whatever their cause is. You always have to take, whenever citizens have something to say, you always have to take that into consideration. But it's just like anything, you listen, and, some views are more of a narrow scope, and when I try to listen to things and make my decisions, my scope is very broad, right? A lot of people will email or call or put on social media about more specific, more narrow focused issues, when my responsibility is to make sure that, sure, that makes sense for maybe a very small group of people, but in the larger sense of the whole city of Janesville, how does that affect everybody equally? Okay, how does this issue affect them? And at the end of the day, what is best for the whole city of Janesville, not just specific groups out there? And I've tried to be that way, there's your social groups, there's your business groups, political groups, and I think I've done a very good job of being my own person and making my own decisions. And sure, I listen to people, but am I influenced? I don't know. I wouldn't say that. but you know, I do try to listen. And my test is how do I believe this is going to affect the city of Janesville as a whole? You know, if that metric is, you know, the greater majority is going to benefit from this, even though I may make some people unhappy, then I've got to make that decision, even if it's unpopular, right? It's a lot easier to sit up there and say, well, I don't have enough information or this and that, so I'm not going to vote for it. And then you benefit anyways because you know it's going to pass, and so therefore you get the benefits of both worlds. A, it passed, and B, you didn't have to take a stance on it. You know, I mean, that's not me. I'd rather be right out front and say, I agree with it, or I don't agree with it, and this is why. And if you don't like it, I guess you don't like it.
Yeah. The city of Janesville has operated under a city manager form of government for a long time, 100 years. And the city manager form, the council is there as a policy-making body, and the city manager is entrusted with dealing with the day-to-day dealings of running a small business. And actually, when you think about it, it's not necessarily that small.
I wouldn't say so small.
Yeah, yeah. How do you balance that role of policymaker against that desire sometimes to get a little bit deeper into how some decisions you've made are actually rolled out in the community?
That's a good question. It is difficult, right? Because most of us aren't spending 40 hours a week as a council member doing council business, right? Unlike the city officials, the city manager, their staff, you know, a lot of us have different types of backgrounds. It's not specific to running a municipality or being an HR person or so on and so forth, or law enforcement administration. You know, it's not easy because, well, how about I flip this a little bit? Okay. I am an administrator in a
large organization, a large public organization.
Public organization. So I see this from both sides, right? I am governed, my agency is governed by a board, right? An elected board and committees. So I understand both sides of it, right? What I try to do is try to empathize with what they're doing and having an understanding that, sure, I have these philosophies, or these are the philosophies what I believe are coming back to me as the majority of how Janesville sees itself, or this is what they want, right? And how do I get that point across, right? I worry about overstepping because I'm not a subject matter expert when it comes to some of the HR things. Sure, I'm exposed to some of that stuff in what I do, but I probably more than most entrust the city employees because I am kind of one of them, right? Maybe not for the city, but I understand that they have a job, they have good intent to do their job and do what's in the best interest of the city, even though sometimes people don't agree with how it's done. So for me, it's a really balanced approach because I tend to defer to their knowledge and say, it's your job to execute. You've heard what I had to say. Even though I might not agree with how you're doing this, I think the outcome is going to be the same. So therefore, you've got the latitude to do that.
I like to remind people that the city governance structure really puts you, the city council members, in an interesting position because on the one hand, you are the policymaker and you are the body that decides the general direction of where the city is going. At another level, you also only have one employee that's accountable to you, and that's the city manager. And that individual you've entrusted with the day-to-day activity associated with implementing the decisions that you make. And that's a balancing act, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I think, I can't speak for all the council members, but I know that most of them have a biweekly meeting minimum with the city manager, one-on-one, if they so choose to do so. I do. And you know, that's where some of the conversations happen. You know, there certain things are presented to us, which is going on to the agenda for the next meeting, or there's certain things that are we get a heads up that may come out, or something that they're working on, but it's not really ready to be pushed out yet. So that's where they get that information, and they build that kind of relationship with the city manager. You know, so we do have that one-on-one access, other than just you know, the council showing up and on Monday night and saying, "Hey, what do you got for us?"
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
well, the city council operates under what I like to call the rule of 4. There's 7 of you, but it majority rules, and it takes 4 of you to be on the same page on an issue.
Yes.
To make something actually happen. How do you get to consensus with fellow council members on tough decisions so that you can have that rule of 4 truly work?
I mean, each council member, you know, they go about things in different ways. You know, I can't really speak for them, but I mean, I've never.
Your own, how do you bring your issues to make sure that you've got a consensus of enough people that your passes?
Well, you know, I may reach out and say, "Hey, you know, you got any questions on this this topic, or you know, is there other things that we need to understand on this, or so on and so forth." But to be quite honest with you, I don't really collaborate or anything like that. You know, I mean, I may seek, "Hey, you know, what's your thoughts on this? How do you see this, or what issues are there that I might not see, you know, or what positives are there that I might not be seeing," and so I can draw my own conclusion and vote how I believe I should vote. But you know, I don't talk much with the rest of them.
One of the hot button phrases or words that you hear a lot in the community is transparency, and transparency breeds accountability. And it's been a conflict in some issues on some levels in recent days. In general terms, Aaron, what's your perspective on just how much can you be transparent, and how much do your bosses, the electorate, have a right to know?
Well, obviously there's statutes and things put in place for government as far as you know, like open records laws and things like that, meetings, you know, the open meetings laws and stuff like that. So, I mean, for the most part, you know, I don't really see transparency as an issue. I think when people bring up transparency, that, hey, we're not being transparent, I think it's the timing of the information, not necessarily that there is no information that we're willing to push out. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately,
the timing thing is a big deal.
I think so.
Yeah, a huge deal. And the fact that on some big issues things come seemingly after the fact, doesn't help with that credibility thing.
Correct. And
how do you deal with that?
Well, you have conversations.
Yeah.
And you basically say, "Hey, how did we miss the mark on this?" You know, it's not like it snuck up on us. You know, how did this not go out ahead of time? And since I've been on the council, there has been probably, well, I can't speak before I got there, but I know that's a topic of conversation. It's an expectation that we put on the city manager and the city that, hey, one of our focuses need to be is we need to have our information going out in a timely fashion. Not only timely, but you have to give lead time on certain things. And it's been a big focus. And I don't know how public that is, but it's been a big focus for a couple of years now. And with Kevin, when he came in, you know, I'm not going to speak about prior. I think they did what they kind of wanted to do. And with the city manager, Mr. Lehner, that was one of our things is like, hey, we missed the boat on a lot of things, and we need to get this out. And we need to show them that we're not hiding anything or, you know, trying to hoodwink anybody or slide it under the table. And that's the response we get when we miss these marks, you know. So.
And I'm not going to get into any of the instant cases that would talk about it. Let me just ask the general question: how do you hold the city manager accountable to your expectations?
Well, we do have an evaluation process, you know, and just like I guess most people at their employer, there's the city council goes into closed session and we talk about certain metrics that we were going to evaluate him on, and he's given notice of that a year in advance of what our expectations are, what the metrics are, and then we go in and as a group we do the evaluation. Okay. And if they fall short, then obviously it's just like any employee. You know, you say, hey, this is what you need to work on.
A couple of real quick items as we start to wind down. We've got a couple of minutes left. What's the toughest issue you've had to deal with?
Well, you know, I mean, we've had a couple of big newsworthy things, but I would have to say, since I've been here, it's going to be the data center. It has been the data center, just because the implications of it, you know, the impact that it could have on this community, and we got to get it right, you know, period. You know, I know there's a lot of movement, you know, not just Janesville, but outside of Janesville, statewide, national, against data centers, but, you know, I prefer to look at the whole thing, and some of these issues have kind of been put to the wayside as far as the technology advances and things like that, but due to the impact that it could have on Janesville, either positive or negative or a combination of both, right? It's very serious, and we need to take, you know, we need to look at it all.
In 35 to 52 seconds, what's the future bring for Aaron Burdick?
You know, it's the end of the year, right? Getting all my budget stuff done, and you know, we got the city's budget that I think that's on the next agenda.
On Monday night's agenda.
Monday night's agenda. We'll get that taken care of, and you know, we'll move forward from there. Move
on to the next big, important decision to be made. Aaron Burdick, always a pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing. And we'll, I'm certain, have you back again for another conversation down the road a piece here on Newsmakers, a program presented to you by the Rock County Civics Academy in cooperation with JATV Media Services. Aaron Burdick, again, thank you so very much. Continue doing what you're doing. And next week, we'll bring in another individual who makes a difference in the quality of life we enjoy here in Rock County, as we bring you the latest on Newsmakers from the Rock County Civics Academy. Have a great day.